Здраво на сите, добро дојдовте во едно ново видео на издавачката куќа Артконект. Јас сум Катерина Шекутковска и денеска ќе разговарам со исландската авторка Бриндис Бјоргвинсдотир. Бриндис е авторка на романот за тинејџери и тинејџерки Локална шега. Овој роман, само што туку излезе од печат. Преводот на романот е на Мери Кицовска. Книгата е објавена во рамки на проектот Пораки на надеж, инспиративна европска литература. Проектот е кофинансиран од програмата Креативна Европа на Европската унија. Денеска со Бриндис ќе разговараме малку за овој интересен роман за тинејџери и тинејџерки. Таа во овој роман ни представува една возбудлива приказна за младата Клара. Приказната е проткаена со доста хумор и со авантури, односно станува збор за авантурите, доживувањата кои што младата Клара ги доживува за време на божикниот распуст, додека е кај својата баба, а нејзините се на одмор. И драго ми е што имам оваа можност да разговарам со Бриндис, со една авторка од Исланд, која ќе ни раскаже нешто повеќе за нејзиниот роман, за нејзината работа како авторка и така натака. Hello, dear Bryndis. How are you today? Where are you at the moment?
I'm at my parents' place in Hafnarfjörður, where I'm from. I understood some of the words you said.
Really?
Humor, Roman. Yeah, it's a beautiful language.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Since A Local Joke is the first book that's been translated into Macedonian, from you as an author, would you be so kind and maybe introduce yourself, introduce the work you're doing, what kind of books you're writing, and so on?
Yeah, I started writing fiction when I was 15, and then I, of course, just finished college and all of that. And I went to university to study history. And then I studied folklore. It's called folkloristics. And in folklore, we are learning a lot about like folk tales, fairy tales, folk songs, and jokes, because jokes is part of folklore, like short stories.
Yes.
And then when I was 15, I wrote my first book with my friend. And then when I was like 25, I started to write again. And then I wrote a book about a fly, a housefly, that ends up stopping a war. The idea was to get something that is so tiny and something we normally don't see, or most people find it very easy to kill a housefly, like it doesn't matter. And I wanted this tiny creature to do something great, something big, like stopping a war. And then I got much more into like studying humor and jokes, and then I started to write the local joke. And I guess it's influenced a lot by my studies on humor and jokes, and how some people are constantly telling like funny stories and how they can make everyday things seem interesting and funny, and also how we make fun of people, like there are certain stereotypes.
Yes. And
I was kind of trying to play a bit with the stereotypes, and also just how to make something that is very everyday, trivial, our everyday surroundings and situations seems like they are very interesting and exciting and funny. So this character, Clara, she is living a very normal life, but how she tells or talks about it is she makes it look very interesting and funny.
That's something that comes along in the book a lot. I mean, Clara is a very funny girl But let's stay in the big picture. Like I mentioned in the short introduction about the book in Macedonian, that it's about a girl named Clara. She lives in a small city in Iceland and has some very interesting adventures during the Christmas holidays. Yeah. So it's a novel about her. Yeah. About family, about friendship, about growing up in some way, and also a story about finding one's own identity. Yeah. So what was the main story you wanted to focus on? Because it has a lot of these topics, and how did you approach the book, the whole writing process? I mean,
this was the thing is, like, when I was like 32 years old when I wrote this book, and I kind of wanted to revisit my feelings when I was a teenager, because I found everything so interesting. and to do something for the first time, to kiss someone for the first time, or to get attention from your class or to the teachers for the first time, everything, it had so great impact. And there were so strong feelings. So I kind of just wanted to write about, like, experiencing strong feelings. And that's why I chose to write about the teenager, because then everything is happening kind of for the first time.
Yes.
And your world, like your village or your town and your school, is like your whole world. And that is where everything happens. So this is like what I wanted to write about. But then somehow decided also to write about my family, because there were some my grandfather, he had a sister and a brother that were seen as weirdos. Yes. They were both seen as something like different from anyone else. And I started to think about them, like, because people were sometimes making fun of them or telling interesting stories about them. I also wanted to reflect this teenager, Clara, in the past generation. And this maybe sound very weird, but in the end, Clara starts to hear stories about them, and then there is a secret going on in the family.
Sure,
and
we don't want to.
And she ends up has to help out with revealing this secret. So everything, it is, so the generations are combined.
Come together,
they come together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned a lot of stuff that I wanted to ask you about, but let's stay at Clara's perspective, because I enjoyed the book so much because it's written from Clara's perspective. I think there are a lot of people that will read the book, and especially a lot of teenagers that can totally identify with Clara because they have the same problems, they know the struggles, they know how it feels to be sometimes left alone, or maybe have these feelings of not knowing how to react or how to adapt. So was that the main reason why you chose to write from Clara's perspective? Because of course, as a writer, you could choose another perspective.
Definitely. I was trying to write this story for a while, and it was not until I found this perspective to become Clara, then it just started to flow. It was just like, it became quite easy for me when I found her. And so that was like the key, was this voice of the teenager that is like, and she really wants to enjoy life and participating in everything. She wants to be social and involved, But then, as we know, and teenagers also know, it's like, there are other people as well. And they also have some plans, and there is power, and sometimes you are not, sometimes you're left out, or you're not invited to a party or something. And that it's such a big thing when you are a teenager to not be allowed to be involved when you really want to be involved, So it's also a bit about that. And that's why also Clara is a bit like her, like the older people in her family, because they had many ideas and were social, but they were maybe not allowed to participate like fully in society. So so she starts to think, am I some kind of a joke?
Yes.
And that's where the title comes from. Like, are we the local joke,
Oh, yeah. Sure. So Clara, as you said, I mean, there are a lot of moments, a lot of parts of the story with which we can identify. I mean, like approaching other people, making new friends, or being part of a group, not getting invited to a party. But she also talks a lot about falling in love, or the boys she likes, and she discusses love and relationships a lot with her friends. So I wanted to ask you, how did you approach these topics of love, and especially sexuality, of course, teenager sexuality, in a book that's made for or written for teenagers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is always a bit of a difficult thing, especially like my joke. What I had in my mind was like that she is so excited about falling in love and her sexuality, but nothing really happens, kind of. And I often ask myself, like, why didn't I allow her to do more? Maybe it's, maybe I myself had some. I kind of didn't know how far I could go with that. But also I kind of wanted to discover also, like through her friends and her family, also, different experiences of sexuality, or on, just how to approach someone you like. So some of the girls are very shy, and they're just waiting for, the right one, like the one they like, to approach them. Some of the girls are much more like outgoing, and are like, of course, you need to, go and get what you want. And, so there are many different approaches going on. And that is just like, it's very, I mean, it's such a personal thing. And this is what teenagers, I think, talk about a lot. It's like those different approaches, both towards like love and sex, of course, and then just like friendship and so on.
So at this topic, I mean, Clara also finds out a bit about her family, some relatives that have passed.
Yeah.
And while reading the book, at the beginning of the book, we see 2 photographs.
Yep.
Maybe you can show us.
Those are my the brother and sister of my grandfather.
Yes, maybe you can tell us something more about these 2 people, and what inspired you to write about them, or to take. You said a little bit something about these 2 people, but maybe you can tell us something more. What inspired you to write about them?
Yeah. The thing is, my grandfather, like back in the days, I mean, he was born in like 1910, and they were 13, like the brothers and sisters, they were 13. And 2 of them never had children. And they were both seen as some kind of weirdos.
Yeah.
And his sister, she was very like strong woman, and she had like she was very beautiful, and she had many boyfriends at once. And back in the days, people were just like, she's not right, she is. And she had many boyfriends, and she was dating American soldiers as well, and that was something that was frowned upon back then.
Okay.
But she didn't care. She just did what she wanted, and she ended up moving to the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and where she kind of disappeared, and no one really know what happened to her. But we heard some stories that she became like I think it's called Jehovah's Witness.
Yes.
Like they went into a Christian cult group, and I was just like so interested by this woman who just did whatever she wanted and ended up in America. And then was Ingimar, and that's the brother of my grandfather, and he was like a scientist.
Mm.
And he was always trying to solve like some scientific problems, and he was he went to university and so on, but he was always seen as it's very difficult to explain. Like seeing something that was someone who was very clever,
Mm-hmm.
but he was still like very different from everyone else.
Okay.
And he kind of, while other people were socializing or meeting someone, he was alone reading, or reading about science or studying or something like that. And there are many like stories about him, like funny stories about like what he was saying or doing. And then he ended up like no one knows what really happened, because he just went on a boat.
Mm-hmm.
And he had been, and the weather was really bad, and he still went on the boat, and he was sailing, and then he just the boat sank into the ocean, and he disappeared. And no one really knows like why he was on that boat in this bad weather condition.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the stories of about two people that were part of my family, and they had no children, and they both kind of disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like a bit influenced by their personalities.
Yes.
If I could have met them, how would they be,
Yeah, but from their stories as well, because I don't want to resolve the mystery of the book, but it's also about maybe a way to write their story till the end. Yes, because that's what you're doing in the novel.
Yeah, maybe I'm trying to end somehow their story, because they both disappeared, and we really don't know, why, or so maybe I was just trying to, also just to give them some respect and some time and get to know them. And then, of course, this is fiction, also just trying to, give their story some kind of an ending or something like that.
I was asking myself, did you want to put these stories together to fill this generational gap, maybe, or to show a way how to fill this gap between the generations? Because at the end, in some way, they have like similar experiences. Yeah.
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 I think it's I kind of wanted to add in some elderly people,
mm-hmm.
because I saw them as something, the conversation between the teenager and between the elderly people, they're always so funny and interesting.
Yes.
And also, like, someone told me once when I really wanted to write and I didn't know what to do, then someone told me, like, in every family there is like a relative, there is someone that is very interesting and has an interesting story.
Yes, that's true.
And I think it's so true. Like, everyone can think about, like, the brother of the grandfather or sister of your grandmother, and they went abroad and they did that and this, and you were hearing those stories. But like, when your grandparents or your mother and father, when they are gone,
yes,
those stories will disappear with them.
Mm-hmm.
Then the stories they are so old, and the next generation, they kind of don't hear stories about their grand the brother of your grandfather. It's like, so I kind of just also wanted to to reach out to this generation before it disappears. And this is the generation that was there during both of the wars, the world wars, and they have experienced so many changes.
Yes.
So that's why it's so funny to get the teenagers to talk to them, because they have experienced different worlds. And so I guess I kind of wanted to show both, like, the differences between the generations, and also to try to find what we have in common.
Yes.
Like, also have to socialize, sexuality,
Yeah.
having a family,
Yeah, but still, for a local joke, as I said at the beginning of our conversation, I think it's a book that a lot of people in other countries and a lot of teenagers can identify with. I mean, it's close to our reality as well. But I find it really interesting because Icelandic is not a language that a lot of people speak in Macedonian, as I told you before.
Of course.
And I wanted to ask you if you could read a bit from the book at the end of our conversation now.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
this is a very long book. I'm always impressed when I see it, but I although it's quite long, I think it's quite easy to read.
It's great to read. Yeah, it has a flow and
Okay, so I will read now a bit from chapter 23, when Clara is with her grandmother eating porridge with apples and cinnamon for breakfast. Okay. 23. kafli. Við amma fengum okkur hafragraut með eplum og kanil í morgunmat. Svo fengum við okkur lýsi og rúgbrauð með osti. Við vorum sammála að dagurinn í dag væri stór dagur í lífi okkar beggja og þess vegna þyrstum við kjarngóðan morgunverð. Amma var að fara að hitta Hallberu aftur eftir langan aðskilnað. Ég var að fara á jólaball í kvöld, þar sem jólaleikritið verður frumsýnt. Amma sagðist ekki trúa því að hún var að fara að hitta Hallberu aftur. Hún hefði alltaf verið viss að Hallbera ætti eftir að bera beinin í Bandaríkjunum. Yeah, this was like here Hallbera is coming from America, from the United States, where she has been living. So in the book, she returns back to Iceland and back to the family, and that is something that never happened. And grandmother is going to meet Hallbera now, and they haven't met each other for many years.
So yeah, Brindis, thank you very much for this opportunity, and I hope this was your first book that was translated into Macedonian, but not the last book, hopefully.
Thank you so much for meeting up with me.
No, the pleasure is all mine.
For translating the book, it's amazing.
The book is amazing, so it was an easy job. Okay, so I'll just say goodbye to our viewers. Драги гледачи, ви благодарам за вниманието и се надевам дека ви се допадна разговорот помеѓу мене и Бриндис Бјоргвинсдотир. Повеќе информации за книгата, како и за проектот од Креативна Европа, можете да добиете на веб страницата на Артконект, исто така и на социјалните мрежи. Можете да се информирате каде може да ја купите книгата и се останато за издавачката куќа. Поздрав и се гледаме. Чао, чао!